Welcome to the first part of the personal brand workshop. And let's begin with you and the fact that you've been in an academic cocoon for some time and your job has been to get an education, and at some point you're going to graduate. And when that happens, you're going to be leaving the formal education process and the academic cocoon and the world of learning and taking a giant step forward towards the world of learning and getting a job. So that next step can be rather tenuous, and that's the whole idea of the personal brand workshop, is to get you moving along in the direction of your career path. Not only towards getting a job, but towards a dream job. And when I talk about a dream job, what I'm referring to is being in a workspace where you love what you do and do what you love. So that dream job, if you have a career in mind, would look something like to be a doctor, to be a geoscientist, to be an engineer. For others, we're not necessarily clear on our career path at this point, and so to have a general dream job is absolutely fine. And so that dream job might be just to enjoy your work or to be in a workspace where you are supported with your growth and development. So if you have the example value brand statement worksheet that you're able to download on my website, then go to the example space right above the lettering, and what I want you to do is put in my dream job is. So if you don't have this worksheet, you can use a blank piece of paper and just write in my dream job is. So it can be career related or it can be just a general statement. Give you 30 seconds to complete this. In my case, my dream job was to be an exploration geoscientist. So what's your dream job? So once you've recorded that, let's think about the roadway that's going to get you towards your dream job. Well, that roadway starts with you and creating your brand. And the way we define a brand is simply your unique way of creating value. Talking about you creating value sometime in the past, or perhaps now, or how you intend to create value. So when we think about value, how we define that, building value, we simply mean making a difference. And recruiters and people who are looking to hire you, that's one of the things they're looking for. They're looking for difference makers, people who are going to help companies grow. So how do we get started? We need to be thinking about how can we separate ourselves out from everybody else. Another way of looking at this is to look at these cows that look pretty much the same. So imagine that being you with your fellow graduates, all with about the same amount of knowledge, coursework, experience, degree. So how are we going to take you as one of these cows and separate you out? So what we're going to do in this workshop is essentially transform you from a standard cow into a purple cow. And I think you would all agree if we stuck a purple cow back in that field, it definitely would stand out. So then the question is, well, we're all going to be purple cows in the field. And yes, that's true. However, when we define purple cow, it is your unique way of making a difference. That's what's going to make you a purple cow, your unique way of making a difference. So when we're looking at your resume, the question becomes, how can we tell that you're a difference maker? How can we see that you're a purple cow? Well, we're going to look at 4 different areas where you have potentially made a difference sometime in your life. It could be the school experience, you working on individual projects or group projects, for example. Perhaps it's part-time work experience, you working during the summertime, or perhaps you working in the community on a part-time basis. Volunteering, which is a primary filter used by recruiters to assess somebody's potential to make a difference. Perhaps you've done some volunteering at school, or perhaps you've been volunteering in the community. Last one we're going to look at is activities, which I define as your involvement in sports or theater, dance, music. So one of those 4 areas, you've potentially made a difference. And in fact, I know you have made a difference, and we're going to discover that today. So let's take volunteering as an example. My volunteer experience in Nepal. Activity, being a basketball coach at YMCA. School experience, my research on sulfur isotopes. Work experience, working for Lafarge in Switzerland. So these are all statements of examples in one of the 4 areas: volunteering, activity, once again that's sports or the arts, school experience, or work experience. So what I want you to do is go to the example value brand statement worksheet, which is downloadable on my site. If you don't have this worksheet, that's fine. Just use a blank piece of paper and write down the word example. Otherwise, with the worksheet, go to example and just give the volunteer, school, work, or activity experience example of where you think you've made a difference. So I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. So you can write down your experience as a volunteer. You can write down your experience in an activity. You can write down your experience in the school experience, or perhaps part-time work experience. Okay, so once you've completed your example, the next question is, how have you created value? So let's go back to the volunteer example, volunteering in Nepal. How did that person create value? She says, I created a landslide hazard map for future community development. How about the activity, being a basketball coach at YMCA? How did this person create value? I gave underprivileged kids an opportunity to learn and develop new skills. School experience, my research on sulfur isotopes. How did they create value? I developed an effective alternate tool for exploration, something along those lines. Working for Lafarge in Switzerland as a work experience. How did they create value? I tested high-tech tools and optimized blasting operations. So these are all statements of how they created value or made a difference relative to their example. So let's go to the example value brand statement worksheet, or on a blank piece of paper write down value, or go to the value section and just describe how you created value or made a difference. Or just write down what you did in that experience as a volunteer or part-time work, school experience, or activity. So I'll give you 30 seconds to complete that. So what you've got so far is an example of where you've made a difference, how you've made a difference, in other words, what you did to create value. So the next part of this exercise is to combine those two sentences into what I call a value statement, which says specifically how you created value. So let's go back to the volunteer experience, my volunteer experience in Nepal. The value statement is the combination of the above two sentences. My volunteer experience in Nepal allowed me to create a landslide hazard map for future community development. So allowed me to are the connecting words to make one sentence. So being a basketball coach at YMCA, value statement allowed me to give underprivileged kids an opportunity to learn new skills. School experience, my research on sulfur isotopes helped develop an effective exploration tool. So helped develop is the connecting words for the two sentences. Working for Lafarge in Switzerland, value statement enabled me to test high-tech tools and optimize blasting operations. So let's go to the third section on the example value brand statement worksheet, or on a blank piece of paper, write down value statement and just combine the example and how you created value. I'll give you 30 seconds to complete that. This value statement is a very important component to your personal brand, and it will change over time as you gain more experience in your career, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. So now we have this value statement, which, as mentioned, really is the core to your personal brand. It's your specific way of creating value or making a difference. And we're using two oculars to see how you've made that difference. So it's essentially how you see yourself and how others see you, the feedback you've been getting from teachers and coaches and supervisors and employers. So it's the combination of these two oculars in the context of creating value that we want to look at. So the way we're going to look at it, we're going to look at your attributes. In other words, how you have made a difference. So we're going to look at your strengths. We're going to look at your skills, values, passions, goals. Let's start with strengths. So strengths to me is something that comes naturally to you. So let's go to a separate worksheet, the personal brand inventory worksheet, and go to the section on strengths. If you don't have this worksheet, just use a separate blank piece of paper and write down strengths. And what I'd like you to do is give me 3 strengths, 3 things that come naturally to you. And to guide you through this process, I'm going to provide you with a word list. So this is not the complete list of strengths. So if you think of a strength, something that comes naturally to you that's not on this word list, please write it down. Otherwise, pick 3 strengths and star the one most relevant to you. I'll give you 20 seconds to do that. So what comes naturally to you? Is it integrity, listening, logical, reliability, respect? What comes naturally to you? All of these word lists that you're going to be seeing are on my website in case you need to refer back to them. Okay, let's move on to skills. Skills are something that you have learned, perhaps a long time ago in elementary school, or perhaps yesterday. Something that you've learned. And it could be a strength that you're continuing to learn. So let's go to the second section on the personal brand inventory worksheet under skills, or on a blank piece of paper writing down skills. Provide or write down 3 skills that you have learned. And they can be soft skills that I'm listing here, or they can be hard skills that you've learned through work experience or part-time work. So I'll give you 30 seconds to write down 3 skills that you've learned. So again, these are soft skills. So if you want to use the soft skills, what have you learned? Diplomacy, empathy, friendliness. Perhaps for this exercise, I would encourage you to use the soft skills that you've learned. That's going to be more suitable for your brand at this point. Something that you've learned. Let's go on to values, which are essentially principles, something you're not going to compromise on. So let's go to the third section, values, on the personal brand inventory worksheet, or on a blank piece of paper, write down values. And write down 3 principles that are important to you, 3 values. So I'm going to provide you with a new word list, not the complete list. If you have a value that comes to mind that is not on this list, please write it down. Otherwise, pick 3 and star the one most relevant to you. I'll give you 30 seconds to complete this task. Is it integrity, kindness, freedom, generosity. What's of value to you? All right, let's talk a little bit about passions. So, what is your passion? On the personal brand inventory worksheet under activity, I want you to write down what you're passionate about. So, it can be anything, sports related, reading, whatever you're passionate about, please write that down. And then, really, what we want to focus on is what's the feeling when you do that activity. And so, underneath the word activity, or on a blank piece of paper, write down 3 feelings. So, I've got a new word list to guide you. If you have a feeling that you have that's not on this list, please write it down. Otherwise, pick 3 feelings and star the one most relevant to you. I'll give you 30 seconds. Do you feel liberated, satisfied, relaxed, reserved, elated, beaming, absorbed? What's the feeling that you get? What's the most relevant feeling you get when you do that activity? Let's talk a little bit about goals. We have short-term goals and long-term goals, and really I want you to focus on what you're going to be doing or what you would like to be doing 5 years from now in the context of creating a value. So it could be volunteer related, it could be school related. What are you going to be doing 5 years from now? So let's go to the personal brand inventory worksheet under goals. Just write down a short sentence of what you're going to be doing 5 years from now. Perhaps to create value, or just what are you going to be doing 5 years from now? So I'll give you 30 seconds to write that down. So for some of you, it will be completing a degree, going on to higher education, finding a job, finding a dream job. What is your goal? 5-year goal. Okay, as you're finishing writing that up, next step is a very important one in defining what your unique personal brand is, and that is which word describes you in the context of making a difference or your unique way of creating value. And we need to be thinking about the past. We need to be thinking about right now, and we need to be thinking about your intentions to create value. So we want to refer to one or any of these areas where you have potentially made a difference. So that one word might be embedded in your value statement, for example. So let's go to what I call the action word. Action word simply because it implies doing. And I'm going to provide you with a list of action words, not the complete list, of course. You have an action word that describes how you have, do, and intend to create value. Please write it down. Otherwise, pick 3 and star the one most relevant to you. So again, you have to think about it from the past, present, and future. How you have, do, and intend to create value? Is it through initiating, inspiring, engaging, enabling? So I'll give you 30 seconds to record your information, and once again, star the one that's most relevant to you. So congratulations, you have really all of the components to your brand. So if we think about it as jigsaw puzzle pieces that you need to put together, you've got an action word that you've just starred as your most relevant action word, that nicely describes how you have, do, and intend to create value. You have a value statement which specifically says how you create value. You have your attributes of how you've made a difference, your strengths, goals, values, passions. And you've got the areas where you have created value: school experience, work experience, volunteering, or an activity. So the next step is to put these together to create what I call a brand statement, which is not a mission statement, that's too long, and it's not an elevator pitch, that's also too long. So how do we define a brand statement? It's a general statement. It's not necessarily career related. That's more for the value statement. So the brand statement is a general statement. Doesn't really have to have any reference to a career. It's how you have, do, and intend to generally create value. So to make it effective and resonate, it needs to be 10 words or less. It needs to imply your ability and potential to create value. The interesting thing about when you say your brand statement to people, you end up attracting people and organizations to how you create value. In other words, they like your brand, and so in the job search process, you make it easier for yourself because now you're attracting people to how you make a difference. It really puts you on people's radar screens when it comes to getting a job. Puts you on the top of a pick list, if you will. So, brand statement needs to be 10 words or less. It really is modified or supported by the value statement, which is a more specific statement about how you create value. Brand statement's a general statement. It begins with an action word, and when you say your action word as you're going through this process of creating your brand statement, I want you to ask 3 questions. What, how, who? And the answers to those questions are something that you've already recorded in your strengths, skills, values, goals, and passion. So I'm going to give you an example from a former mining engineering student. Building engineering solutions through continuous learning and research. So this is a somewhat general statement. The fact that it's got engineering in it makes it a little more specific, but nonetheless, it's a very strong brand statement. So building is the action word. So the question is, building what? Engineering solutions. It could also be solutions. Engineering happens to be a passion, and solutions is a goal. So that's what he recorded as part of his attributes. Okay, so building engineering solutions, how? Through continuous learning and research. Where did he come up with learning? That was a value. Research is a skill. So you can see you've got all the pieces to put your brand statement together. Here's another example. This is a co-op student at the University of Victoria, mechanical engineering student, working together to produce innovative and quality solutions. An outstanding brand statement. I know this individual, and even in high school, and probably earlier than that, this was how he created value. So this is a very consistent statement about how he has, does, and intends to create value. Working is the action word. Working with who? Well, together. So together is a strength of his, likes to work in teams. To do what? Produce quality solutions. Produce is a passion, quality is a value, solutions is a goal. Let's look at one more. So just as a reminder, the how in this example is innovative. So working together to produce innovative and quality solutions has completely been derived from the action word and the attributes, which in this case with innovative is a skill. Let's look at one more. Leading creative change to build value for business. This is a young lady who's a BBA graduate. And so how does she make a difference? How has she made a difference? How does she intend to make a difference? By leading. Action word. How? Through creative change, which is a skill and a value. To do what? Build value, which is a goal. For who? Businesses, which is a passion. So my brand and how I create value is in this brand statement. Helping others discover their greatness. So this applies to me way back in early days, even elementary school, all the way through high school, university, throughout my entire career, and what I'm doing now as a guest lecturer. Helping is the action word. Helping who? Others. How? Discover. And discover is a passion and a skill. To do what? Discover greatness. And greatness is a value. Helping others discover their greatness. So when somebody says, Patrick, what do you do? I say, I'm a guest lecturer helping others discover their greatness. So let's go to the brand statement section on the worksheet. And if you haven't got the worksheet, of course, then on a piece of paper, write down brand statement and begin working on a statement that's general and 10 words or less. So if you're looking for examples of brand statements and value statements, please refer to my website, geodudecorner.com. I'll give you a minute to write that down. There's also videos. All the word lists that you've been working with are also on the site. So it's a very good resource to help you not only put together a brand statement and value statement, but as you'll discover in the next part of the personal brand workshop, when we get into networking and looking at brand products, it's a great resource to look at how to put together a resume, a brand card, that sort of thing. So in live presentations, I get students to post their brand statements and their value statements, and for this exercise we won't be doing this. However, if I'm doing live, then I get the students to type in their note giving their value statement and brand statement. And the reason for posting both is so I can see the connection between the specific way you create value and how you generally create value. So instead of using Edmodo, please send me via email pmcandless@telus.net. Give you a second or two to write that down. Send me your value and brand statements and I'll have a look at them to make sure they resonate. If not, I might suggest some alternative possibilities. So helping others discover their greatness. You have greatness. We're in the process of discovering it. So thank you so much for your attention and participating in this first part of a two-part personal branding workshop. The next workshop will be marketing your brand. Thank you so much.